move on to this now. South Africa's cities are changing in all the sorts of ways, but here's the thing. Some of the apartheid's leaders are still on our streets. That's right, several South African roads pay tribute to former prime ministers, and one of them is John Vorster. In fact, his name has pride of place on near Johannesburg's West Rand. And the question, of course, is what is it doing there?
It's lunchtime on John Vorster Road. A group of hawkers huddles together, scraping a meal from their meagre profits. Across the street, a homeless man. No lunch for him, just a blanket and a pair of old tackies. This road bears the name of an apartheid leader. John Vorster was in government when Nelson Mandela was in prison. He was Prime Minister when Steve Biko was murdered. But here we are, still living in Vorster's shadow. Any South African is free to live and travel on this road. And yet it's named after a man who fought against that freedom his entire life. Some commuters aren't bothered. They say Vorster should stay exactly where he is. What do you think about having a street named after an apartheid prime minister?
Well, it's part of South African history. Can't go changing everything. They should keep it that way.
But it may not be that simple. Noor Niftaguddin is a history professor. He says street names define our communities.
So when we change the names of buildings, of street names, of schools and so on, at one level we're making an important symbolic intervention to say that these urban areas must now reflect the fact that black people belong here, right? That this is also our place.
It's not clear why the city is sticking with John Vorster Road. The council can wait for the public to make a submission, but it can also get involved. In fact, a 2017 policy states that the council can initiate the process. Johannesburg has changed several street names over the years, but John Vorster remains. Now, some people say it's time for change.
No, it must change. I mean, we are in a new era. Things are changing. It must change.
Now it must be Rainbow Nation, you see. So these names must change.
It's probably the right thing to do to start changing the names.
But others say the name has its place. They believe it's an important lesson for young South Africans.
Maybe sometimes we passing through, my child asks, "Oh, Mama, John Vorster, what that mean?" Then I'll know how to explain to my child and tell him or her about our history.
The street may remind us of the past, but for many, there's no need for that. They see Vorster's legacy each and every day. Michael Marilia, Johannesburg.
All right, let's get some response now from the city of Joburg. Eric Isking is the Deputy Director of Immovable Heritage, and he joins me now. Eric, thank you for your time. Let's start with the removing of names. I mean, 25 years into democracy, why do we still have these names in Johannesburg?
Okay, it's a good question, and we need to work on removing names that are hurtful or discriminatory. I think the lead in summed that up pretty well, that's enshrined in the new policy. The idea is to be receptive. If people bring these sorts of issues to attention and call for renaming, there are processes for dealing with that. And also the point is, yes, that the city can initiate those moves. We have done that with a whole number of places. And I would say that's indicated here.
No. And with the process that you've started with other names, what's stalling on the rest of the names that are remaining? Have you received any, requests to remove them? Are you also still, processing or rather, waiting on processes to remove the names?
Okay. Well, the first thing is there isn't a long list of really offensive names like the ones that have been highlighted here. or let's say very controversial names. You know, there are a whole number that have been addressed. The change, for instance, from Triumph to Sophiatown, from DF Milan Drive to Beyers Nudia Drive, and so forth. So there are, it's really more like a handful that are outstanding. We haven't received those applications, and maybe this sort of publicity would help to stimulate that. In the absence of that, you know, I think the city should take the initiative.
And we often hear that the argument that renaming streets or bridges or whatever the case may be is quite expensive. Take us through, you know, the numbers there.
Okay. So it hasn't really been quantified, you know, the costs. Some of those are public costs and some are private costs for businesses needing to change their letterheads, things like that. It can at times be exaggerated as well, because actually you need to renew names and signs anyway from time to time. And, you know, there is the point about the symbolic impact and the comfort for users to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of identification with names, the sort of points that Prof. Niftakhodian was making, that names need to be inclusive, they should promote goodwill and reconciliation. So the counter-argument would be, how do you put a price on that, you know? And I think there's some truth in both camps. The policy itself actually recognizes that there are these, you could say, contending elements. We need to take account of costs, especially in a country that has other priorities, desperate poverty, and so on. But nevertheless, you know, names are part of our whole experience of the city and our identity, who we are. So all of that needs to be taken into account.
Right. And just in terms of time frame, I mean, how much does it take to change your name?
Okay, you know, there are sort of technical time frames that are set down. You need to allow enough time for consultation, for the communication to go out, for people to be able to respond, to collate those answers. And then internally, it would have to go, it would have to be packaged and go back to the council as the elected representatives for the residents to consider and you know, make a final determination. So it would be a matter of a few months.
All right. And just before we let you go, I mean, Eric, for all South Africans wondering if indeed the names will be changed, is the city of Johannesburg pursuing it? Are they pursuing a name change of all names that are still remaining that represent apartheid leaders, of course?
Okay. The city is committed to removing all hurtful names.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much, Eric. Again, thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
All right, then. Well, of course, that is Eric Esken speaking for the city of Johannesburg.